Hey everybody, Andrew here from Go Green Compost, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you guys what I think is basically the easiest way for anybody to get started composting. And it doesn't require a lot of fancy equipment, it does require a little bit of work, but it is very easy to do. And not only am I going to be showing you this method of composting, but I am also going to be showing you where I am doing this composting on my own property. And we'll take a look at some of the microorganisms, the fungi, the little critters who are doing the work of composting and breaking down organic matter, and we'll actually see them in the process of doing that. So it's going to be a great video. Stick around. Let's get to it. So when a lot of people think about getting started with composting, they're probably thinking of something like this GeoBin composter or some other kind of compost bin. Or you might have something in mind like this Worm Factory vermicompost bin. But the method of composting that I'm going to be telling you about today doesn't require a bin, it doesn't require worms, it doesn't really require much equipment at all to get started. All that you need is some wood. And that's because the easiest way to get started with composting is just to let some wood rot on your property. When wood rots, it creates soil. Wood rotting is composting. So one way I'm letting some wood rot on my property is with these mushroom logs. Now about a year ago, a little over a year ago now, I had some trees removed on my property, and rather than having the arborist company haul off the logs, I asked them to leave them for me. And these are the logs that you see stacked up behind me. Now I'm accelerating their decay a little bit. I inoculated these logs with oyster mushroom mycelium, and I've actually already been able to harvest some oyster mushrooms from them. But don't worry, you don't have to mess around with mushrooms or log inoculation if you want to compost with wood. This is another piece of wood I have rotting on my property. This is just an old stump that I was actually driving by someone's house one day while they were having a tree removed, and they had these big chunks of the tree, and I asked if I could take a couple. And you can see I've actually got artist conchs growing on this, so this log is already being decomposed by some saprophytic fungus, and I think the artist conchs are actually really cool. These big polypore mushrooms growing on here. My daughter actually calls this log Mr. Mushroom, so it's kind of a cool thing to have in the yard. But to be fair, it's going to take a long time for this log to break down and to become soil, so it's probably not the most efficient means of composting. But don't worry, there is an efficient and quick way to build up soil by letting wood rot on your property. Now, at the same time I had those trees removed last year that I got those logs from, they also took a lot of the smaller branches and pieces of wood and they ran them through a big chipper that the arborist company brings to your property when they do tree work for you. So what I asked them to do was just leave the wood chips at the edge of my property, and I took them and I spread them all around this area. So when we first moved onto this property, all these trees behind me were pretty stressed out. There were actually a few more because some of the trees we had removed were in this area. But the trees were getting really tall and spindly. They had a lot of dead wood on them. There were vines growing all over the trees that were choking them out. So the first thing we did was we removed all the vines. Then we had the tree service come out and trim the trees and remove a couple of the troubled ones. And then we spread the wood chips around the base of the trees, and it also helped us to fight some of the erosion that was along the foundation of these houses. When we first moved in, this area was really badly eroded. There was a lot of water erosion around the base of the foundations, and building up the soil with wood chips has helped with that a lot. But it's also composting and improving the quality of the soil. And so let's go ahead and take a closer look at what's going on underneath this dry layer of wood chips. So if we clear away the top layer of dry wood chips and start digging down into the soil, and these chips go down several inches. We've spread several loads of wood chips here over the past year. But we'll start to see hyphae of some of these saprophytic fungi that are in here breaking these wood chips down. And you can see there are some white little strands of fungal hyphae. And the deeper we get, we're going to see more and more of this mycelial mat that's forming at the base of these trees and in all these wood chips. And throughout the year, I see all sorts of little mushrooms and fungi come out of these wood chips. And basically what those little white strands that you're seeing there are parts of fungal mycelium that are growing through these wood chips, and they're digesting them. And you can see the deeper we get, the closer we get to kind of a humusy material. And over the next couple of years, all these little fungi that you see in here, all these little hyphae that are busy at work digesting these wood chips, they're going to turn this all into kind of a humusy, nice layer of soil. And also what's interesting is as you go down here, once you get past the first couple inches, it's been several days since it's rained, but this is very moist. So these wood chips are really creating a nice environment for these trees. We're building up the soil, and we're also increasing our soil's biodiversity, and we're increasing the level of biological activity in our soil by providing this food source for the fungi. I mean, you can see there's just little strands, little hyphae of fungal mycelium everywhere. And basically the hyphae are little strands of fungus that go through and they seek out nutrients, and they begin secreting digestive enzymes into these wood chips and breaking them down and digesting them. And you'll have different types of fungus come through here sort of successively. You might have some kind of very aggressive saprophytic fungi that comes through and starts breaking these wood chips down at first. And then after that, you'll have some kind of a substrate left, and you'll get another fungus that comes in that likes that kind of a substrate. And over time, the wood just keeps getting broken down more and more and more until you get into just basically soil. And in a couple of years, I wouldn't be surprised if there is still a little layer of wood chips at the very top here, because you can see where the wood chips are dry on the surface and they're getting baked by the sun during the day, there's not a lot of fungal activity. But the real activity is really going on below the surface, and that's where the composting is occurring. So if you want to get started composting, but you don't necessarily want to have a bin that you constantly have to be feeding with food scraps, and you don't want to worry about keeping a bin full of worms alive, I mean, composting in a bin and vermicompost are excellent. I do both, so I recommend you look into those as well. But if you want the easiest way to get started, just get some wood chips and spread them out on your property, and you will be composting already. So thanks for watching, everybody. If you'd like to see more videos about composting and gardening, then check out this video right here, and I'll catch you next time. Andrew from Go Green Compost out.